With Halloween just around the corner, it makes perfect sense to review something ghoulish, and I've got a game right here that fits the bill and then some. Super Ghouls and Ghosts, a fun action platformer run and gun that came out in 1991, right at the start of the Super Nintendo's life cycle in North America. And don't let the goofy box art fool you, this one is a Capcom banger, which means we're almost certainly in for a good time. So, put on your cape and Dracula teeth, grab your favorite pumpkin, and let's get spooky. Now, there's a good chance you've played this game if you grew up with the Super Nintendo. There's also a good chance you played its two predecessors, the first of which was Ghosts and Goblins, which originally came out in arcades way back in 1985. This game established the fundamentals of the series and was ball-punchingly hard to boot. You played as Arthur, a classic clanky knight archetype, who needed to rescue Princess Prin Prin from an evil demon horde. You had to run through a series of levels using various weapons to take out various enemies, get hit once and you're stripped to your skivvies, get hit again and you're a pile of bones. Fuck! That's right, 2 hits and you were dead, so you could be damn sure that this was a quarter eater back in its time. It was a pretty big success and was ported to a bajillion different consoles, all of which varied wildly in terms of quality. I mean, look at this one. And look at this one. Yeah. Alright, it was succeeded by Ghouls and Ghosts in 1988, which was released in arcades and also a bajillion other platforms. This game followed the same formula, but introduced the gold armor and magic, and generally brought things up a notch. It was a bit of a shock then when Super Ghouls and Ghosts eschewed the multi-platform propensity of its predecessors and was released exclusively for the Super Nintendo. Hell yeah, said all the Nintendo heads, and hell yeah indeed, because the game was a hit. So many asses across the world got kicked by this friggin' thing, which contributed to its notoriety as one of the hardest games on the Super Nintendo. Well, it's 2024 right now, so let's dive in and see if it's as great and as brutal as we all remember. I can glaze over the story because it doesn't stray too much from the other games in the series. It starts with our hero Arthur hauling ass towards the castle to reunite with Prin Prin, who's called Guinevere in this game. But something foul is afoot, and it's these guys. Yep, demons appear and we get this ominous zoom in as one approaches and crashes through the window. Guinevere is scooped up and subsequently taken away to the demon realm, all at the behest of the vile Emperor Sardius. Well, as Arthur, you know exactly what to do, and we waste no time getting to it. You're shown a sweeping overview of the journey ahead of you before diving into the first level, and I really like it when games do this. There's just something so compelling and invigorating about seeing your quest laid out before you in no uncertain terms. The first level itself wastes no time letting you know what you got yourself into by sticking you in a graveyard and kicking your ass with zombies, wolves, falling skulls, shifting ground, tsunamis, and whatever the hell these things are supposed to be, capped off with a boss battle. It really is a fantastically action-packed and atmospheric introduction to the game, and it certainly gets your blood pumping. As you move through the other levels, you encounter other equally awesome environments, like the Rotting Sea, where you ride on bounding waves amidst a graveyard of ships. Or this part where you're in some kind of hideous rotating digestive system where the walls turn to spikes, and your only safety is in this floating cage. The later levels kind of lose their zing just a wee bit, but the bulk of the game is really an awesome string of set pieces that never drag on or get dull. As with previous games in the series, you start each life in your iconic grey suit of armor. If you get hit by anything, that armor goes flying off like it was spring-loaded and you're left in your gotch. One more hit when you're in this state and it's curtains, so you gotta play smart because they have not made things any more forgiving. And when you die, you don't just respawn, it's back to the beginning of the level or the previous checkpoint. This ain't Contra, folks. New to the series is a double jump, which really changes the dynamic, but there's a very infamous catch. For each jump, you cannot control your momentum mid-air, meaning you really do need to look before you leap. You can, however, change direction with your second jump if you're doing a double jump, so you still have some control, but still you're going to be thinking 10 steps ahead for every jump you do so you don't end up on a terrible flight path into certain doom. See, like, right here, I'm screwed. I can only wistfully look back at the platform I overshot while I plummet into the lava. But let's get to the real fun stuff. In your quest you will encounter treasure chests, which you should absolutely check out because they contain weapon and armor upgrades that really add some spice to things. Your default weapon is the lance, but you can also pick up the dagger, axe, bow, torch, scythe, and tri-blade, as well as the goddess bracelet, which has a special use I'll get into later. Each of these weapons has a different behavior that lends itself better to different situations, so be smart about what you pick up and when. Weapons can be augmented by the 2 available armor upgrades. Bronze armor gives your weapons a bit more pep, like how the bow shoots homing arrows or how the dagger goes through multiple enemies. The gold armor takes it a step further and gives each weapon a charge-up magic attack. It's worth noting, however, that regardless of the armor you're wearing, you're back to your underwear in a single hit. It's also possible that a treasure chest won't contain a weapon or armor, but rather a magician who casts a spell, temporarily turning you into a baby or a dinky damsel or a seal or a wasp. There's also a bear trap, which I don't need to tell you is bad. One very notorious thing worth mentioning about the design of Super Ghouls and Ghosts is the final battle, or rather, how you access the final battle. See, when you beat the boss of level 7, you're greeted with this screen, telling you that you cannot go any further unless you're equipped with the bracelet. Sure, where can I find this bracelet? Well, good sir, that would be in any number of treasure chests you encounter as you play through every level of the game all over again. Oh, yep, just as you're all psyched and ready for the final showdown with Sardius, this game hits you with the ultimate hoof in the nards and makes you backtrack through everything all over again. Okay, and this quite frankly sucks, in my opinion anyways. What a sham way to extend the life of a game.
Well, actually...
Yeah, I know that they did this in the other games too, but they shouldn't have. This is the old to get the true ending play on hard mode thing, but way shittier because you have no choice in the matter. Woo! Ha! You can bet points are getting docked for that, but otherwise it is a really well-designed game, and Capcom deserves a high five for this one. So, it's designed really well, but how does it play? Well, I'll start this section off by saying it sure as hell doesn't have a very complex button layout. Jump and attack are the extent of your actions, leaving the X and shoulder buttons basically unemployed. I'm not mad at that, however, and I can't say I was pining for any extra complexity as I was playing. Arthur moves and shoots just fine, and you can be safe knowing that none of your deaths will be due to pressing the wrong button. And when it comes to the jumping, I'm actually fine with the whole no turning back now way it's done. Yeah, it's frustrating if you're used to Super Mario Bros. Or almost every other platformer, but if you look at it as an intentional mechanic of the game for you to work around, similar to something like how a chess piece can move, then it's not so bad and it becomes an extension of the challenge. Like, it forces you to make each move more deliberate and thought out. Would I prefer if it was done differently? Maybe, I don't know. With the weapons, I do have a few gripes, and it mainly has to do with the fact that some of them just plain suck. The torch is so bloody useless when you see it dropped from a pot or a chest. It becomes an obstacle in itself in that you don't want to accidentally pick it up and lose your much better weapon. Damn it! And come on with this tri-blade nonsense. Who on earth can find any kind of utility with this? I kinda wish they allowed you to collect weapons and switch between them with the shoulder buttons, since some are useless outside of some very specific scenarios. You'll quickly learn that the dagger is far and away the best weapon, followed by the bow, and then the others might as well not even exist. Like, how am I supposed to beat this shithead with a torch? Come on! Gah, I really hate this guy. Well, I guess this is a good time to address the difficulty. Yes, it's hard, but it's definitely doable, up until this one point. I chipped my way through every level and even went back around again for the mandatory second playthrough, and I could not for the life of me complete level 7 with the goddess bracelet. I even set the number of lives to 9, which essentially gives you unlimited continues due to how easily you earn continues. But yeah, couldn't do it. So this footage of Sardius here is brought to you by the wonders of the rewind function on Switch Online. I should also address something you will notice very quickly upon playing, and that is the slowdown. Unfortunately, it does not take much for this game to start moving like it's caked in molasses, and it can get real bad. Like, check this out. Let's go! This is likely due to the game not being optimized for the new SNES hardware, and it does take the score down a bit, unfortunately, but as far as I remember, I never took a death from it. Alright, maybe I have. So the gameplay, really good, just really hard. How about the graphics? Well, in terms of graphics, I don't think Capcom has ever given us anything ugly, and this game is no exception. Despite the spooky, macabre themes, everything here is really quite vivid, and the sprites are all top-notch. Arthur himself is a thing of beauty, and I love how goddamn enthusiastically he runs. Even in his drawers, he looks like he's poised to take on the world, and by the way, I gotta say, I'm happy that there's a hero out there that looks like me when I get up to take a drink of water at 3 AM. His ladder climbing animation could use some work, however. The enemies all look fantastic as well, even if some of the design choices are a bit puzzling. A big fat ice-breathing cat is an odd choice, but he looks good. And a tornado barnacle sea otter thing? Sure. And Boots McGee here has a second face on his crotch that produces what can only be described as a flame boner. Sorry, maybe I'm a weirdo, but I literally cannot see anything else. Sardius, however, is massive and looks as awesome as a final boss should look if you're lucky enough to actually get to him. And the awesome levels all have the same great embellishments that make them just as fun to look at as to play. Level 4 in particular is a Mode 7 showpiece that only feels marginally gimmicky. And check out these rotating towers in level 3. I love the background here, really feels like you're in a demon world. As mentioned above, the later levels kinda taper off in terms of their creativity, with levels 6 and 7 not really standing out at all, but nothing is ever all out ugly. Fantastic graphics. The audio in Super Ghouls and Ghosts is also pretty decent. Let's start with the music, which really hits the nail on the head in terms of the vibe it's going for. Have a listen to the classic level 1 music. Yeah, I feel like I'm riding a roller coaster through a haunted house. Just the right level of spookiness mixed with adrenaline. Level 2 is no slouch either. Check it out. And big shout out to this little fanfare, which stuck in my brain more than any other piece of music on the soundtrack. See, that just fires me up. Where's Arthur? Get him in here. Hey, here he is. All right. What? Whoa, hey, whoa, jeez. Ah, okay. Okay. If I had one complaint, it would be that the less memorable tracks kind of blend together in your head. I didn't know each boss had unique music because they all kind of have the same dire synth organ sound. But if the worst thing you could say about a soundtrack is that some of the songs are unmemorable, then you're doing pretty good. Sound effects are a little unremarkable, and the best thing I could say is that everything at least has a sound effect. Jumping, shooting, landing, hitting enemies, and grabbing money bags all have little noises to accompany them, so there's a very good sensory connection with everything happening on screen. They could have used sounds to give the enemies more personality though, because most of them are silent. The Red Aramer Aces could have used a little evil laugh to go with their hey-ta-tay-ta-tay dance or whatever. Or maybe we could have used a Sardius death howl. Oh, Arthur, you son of a bitch! Okay, maybe not. Alright, value time. Buying this game for the Super Nintendo from your local retro gaming store. Is it worth it? Well, yes and no. On the plus side, it is under 30 bucks, which is not bad at all for an SNES game. And it's tough as nails, so you won't beat it overnight. However, if you want to play the game by any means necessary, the old grey cart may not be your best option. If you own a Switch, you can play it as part of the Switch Online service and make generous use of that rewind function. It's also built into the SNES Classic Edition, which is a real bang for your buck when you consider the other games you get on there. And I'd be remiss not to mention the Game Boy Advance port, which came out in 2002, which, while decent for including a few extra game modes, may not be your best bet. Then, of course, you could play it on Capcom Classics Collection for PS2 and Xbox, as well as Capcom Generation Chronicles of Arthur for European and Japanese PlayStations, as well as the Japanese Sega Saturn, which would be a good deal if you didn't have to dust off or import these consoles. So if you're already playing and collecting Super Nintendo, by all means, pick this up. Oh, and a little footnote before I drop the final score. You may wonder what happened to the Ghosts and Goblins franchise since you don't really hear much about it anymore. Well, it kinda just stayed frozen in time, maintaining more or less the same gameplay while seeing sparse releases on odd platforms like the WonderSwan, iPhone, and the PSP. We also got 2 spin-off series with Gargoyle's Quest and Maximo, neither of which really attained huge mainstream success. The last release was Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection in 2021, and despite being pretty good, it was definitely nostalgia bait. Looking back, Super Ghouls and Ghosts was the zenith of the franchise. So, after crunching all the numbers, it looks like this game still holds up and earns itself an 8.8 out of 10. The punishing difficulty may be too much for some, but it doesn't take away from the fact that this is one fun, feisty, action-packed ride that's earned its reputation, for better or for worse. Have fun.
I was running through the castle late one night when my eyes set upon a terrible sight. Through a window a foul creature did appear to steal away my poor Guinevere.
It was the ghost.
It was the Ghouls and Ghosts.
The ghouls and ghosts.
The ones more terrible than most.
The ghouls and ghosts.
My ass is probably toast.
The ghouls and ghosts.
From all the ghouls and ghosts. Now I'm jumping through a graveyard in my underwear, getting thrown around on a sea of despair, clawing my way up to that final door, before hearing that I must go back and do it all once more.
And see more ghosts.
And see more ghouls and ghosts.
More ghouls and ghosts.
Is this some kind of joke?
The ghouls and ghosts.
You could have told me about the bracelet before.
The ghouls and ghosts.
Do you even want to be rescued? You know what? To hell with this. I'm gonna go race go-karts with Mario. Or jump on squares with Cubert. Even that seems like a much better use of my time, quite frankly. I'm still in my underwear, too. God, this is humiliating.